The sun was shining over the church that morning, casting a golden glow on the white ribbons and fresh flowers lining the entrance. For Lydia, this was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, a wedding she had dreamed of since she was a little girl. Guests arrived, dressed in their best, the air filled with laughter, music, and the promise of new beginnings. To anyone watching from the outside, it looked like the perfect celebration. But beneath the polished smiles and carefully chosen words, a different story was unfolding. The family, once known for their unity, had been weathering storms for years. The divorce, the conflicts, the loyalty battles, none of it had been truly resolved. Today, those hidden fractures sat quietly at every table, lingering in every forced laugh and whispering in every awkward glance exchanged between siblings. Micah stood proudly at Veronica's side, refusing to leave her even for a moment. Isaac kept his distance, his eyes cold, his posture stiff. Mariah smiled for the cameras, but her eyes betrayed the distance she carried inside. Ethan hovered near the back, arms crossed, more a witness than a brother, his wife Olivia absent yet still present in everyone's minds like a ghost. And Lydia, radiant in her gown, walked the aisle with a brave smile, unaware, or perhaps desperately pretending not to notice, that the very people she loved most were quietly unraveling. The guests clapped, the choir sang, and the vows were spoken, but under the surface there was a tension so sharp it could slice through the music itself. This wasn't just a wedding, this was a fragile truce, a staged portrait of peace hiding a battlefield underneath. And as the day carried on, one truth became clear. This was supposed to be a day of unity. But instead, it became the family's breaking point. Behind every smile on that wedding day was a story too heavy to tell, loud. The truth was, this family had been splintering for years, long before Lydia ever put on her gown. The divorce of Kim and Barry had left scars that never fully healed, forcing their children to choose sides in battles they were too young to fight. Every argument, every betrayal, every silence had carved deeper lines between them, until love itself felt fragile. Ethan had walked away first. The estranged brother, hardened by years of being caught between his parents' bitterness, had grown cynical. His marriage to Olivia only deepened the rift, an outsider who was never welcomed, never trusted. Olivia became the symbol of intrusion, a reminder that loyalty to the family was conditional. Her absence from Lydia's wedding said everything. She didn't belong, and maybe never would. Isaac, on the other hand, carried the weight of tradition on his shoulders. To him, loyalty wasn't just expected, it was sacred. He wore the family name like armor, protecting it at all costs. And anyone who threatened that armor, whether it was Olivia in the past or Veronica now, became his enemy. His eyes at the wedding said it all. Family came first, and Micah had betrayed that code. Micah refused to see it that way. To him, love was worth the risk, worth the ridicule. Standing beside Veronica, he was unshakable, determined to protect her against whispers, stares, and Isaac's silent judgment. He chose love over loyalty, even if it meant tearing the family apart. Mariah, ever the distant one, floated somewhere in between. She smiled when expected, nodded when required, but her heart wasn't fully in the room. She was caught in the crossfire, neither ready to defend tradition nor willing to sacrifice love. To some, she seemed detached. To others, simply tired. And Lydia, poor Lydia, stood at the center of it all. A hopeful peacemaker, convinced that her wedding would finally be the glue to pull them back together. She believed that love and loyalty could coexist, that the cracks in her family could be sealed with one beautiful day. But what Lydia didn't see, or maybe refused to admit, was that outsiders like Olivia and Veronica were more than just additions to the family. They were lightning rods, symbols, triggers that reignited every old wound, every bitter memory. And here, on her wedding day, those cracks weren't healing. They were widening. It didn't take long before the whispers began. Veronica, elegant, smiling, seemingly unfazed, moved gracefully through the crowd, but every step she took was shadowed by judgment. To some, she was Micah's great love. To others, she was Olivia all over again, a mirror of the outsider who had once split the family in two. Guests leaned in close to one another, voices low but sharp. "She's too much like Olivia," one murmured. "He'll regret this," another said. The comparison spread like wildfire. feeding suspicion. It wasn't really about Veronica herself. It was what she represented: change, intrusion, and Micah's refusal to bow to the family's unspoken rules. And Micah knew it. He felt the stares, heard the whispers, but he stood taller because of them. Every time someone tried to dismiss Veronica, he doubled down, pulling her closer, making sure everyone could see where his loyalty truly lay. He wasn't just defending his girlfriend. He was declaring war on the family's unwritten code. Love must never come at the expense of loyalty. Isaac, watching from across the room, saw only betrayal. To him, this wasn't about love. It was about Micah choosing an outsider over blood. Every laugh Micah shared with Veronica, every affectionate glance only deepened the wound. Isaac's jaw tightened, his hands clenched as if he was holding himself back from saying what he really thought. The tension was subtle at first. Side comments, awkward silences, quick glances exchanged across tables. But beneath those small sparks lay something volatile. Alliances shifted quietly into a room, some guests admiring Micah's courage, others nodding in silent agreement with Isaac. The atmosphere was no longer celebratory. It was a powder keg waiting for a match. And in that moment, a chilling question hung in the air. One no one dared speak aloud, but everyone felt in their bones. Would history repeat itself? Or could love overcome loyalty? The day that should have been filled with laughter and tears of joy suddenly shifted. Words which had been simmering beneath the surface all day finally ignited. A comment here, a pointed look there, and the tension that had been growing for years exploded in front of everyone. Micah and Isaac faced off, the weight of their family history pressing down on both of them. It started with sharp words, accusations flying back and forth, each one hitting deeper than the last. Micah tried to defend Veronica, but Isaac heard only betrayal. Every defense felt like a challenge to his loyalty. Every step Micah took toward his girlfriend, a step away from the family he had sworn to protect. Then, before anyone could intervene, the argument turned physical. Guests gasped, some stepping back in shock, others rushing forward in panic. In an instant, Micah's independence collided with Isaac's sense of duty. The clash wasn't just fists, it was years of resentment, suspicion, and old wounds surfacing all at once. Micah's face bore the evidence of the confrontation, bruised, bloodied, a stark contrast to the white dress, flowers, and celebration around him. The wedding, which had begun as a symbol of hope and love, became a stage for heartbreak. Cameras caught every moment, every grimace, every flash of anger. The joy of Lydia's special day was swallowed by chaos. This fight was more than a sibling squabble. It was a dramatic representation of everything the family had been grappling with. Love versus loyalty, independence versus control, the struggle to heal old wounds while trying to honor tradition. Micah's protective stance over Veronica clashed directly with Isaac's belief in family first, and the collision was unavoidable. For Lydia, standing in the middle of what should have been her happiest day, the scene was devastating. Her wedding was supposed to unify the family, to create a memory of joy and togetherness. Instead, it became a public display of fracture, a visible testament to how fragile the bonds between the siblings had become. The flowers, the vows, even the carefully planned reception faded into the background as the family's deep-seated conflicts played out in real time. By the time the fight ended, nothing would ever feel the same. Micah walked away, bloodied and shaken, but determined to defend his love. Isaac remained firm in his conviction, his loyalty to family unyielding. The clash left scars, not just physical, but emotional, a reminder of how love and loyalty can collide with devastating force. Every guest, every viewer, every fan watching on social media saw the fallout in real time. This wasn't just reality TV drama, it was a human story about the impossible choices families sometimes face, about what happens when hearts and traditions collide in the spotlight. As the echoes of the fight faded, the room was heavy with silence. Lydia's wedding, meant to celebrate love and new beginnings, had become a scene of heartbreak. She stood in her dress, smiling for the cameras, but the joy she should have felt was replaced with a quiet sorrow. Her brother's clash had stolen the spotlight, leaving her day marred by conflict she couldn't control. Kim and Barry, who had already weathered years of tension and division in their family, were caught in the middle. Their fractured parenting, past arguments, and the consequences of their divorce had left the children with deep-seated loyalties and conflicting values. Watching Micah and Isaac fight in front of everyone forced them to confront just how fragile their family had become. The parents' attempts to mediate felt almost too late. The siblings themselves felt the strain immediately. Micah, still shaken and nursing his injuries, was torn between defending his love for Veronica and acknowledging the bonds he had with his family. Isaac, steadfast in his loyalty-first mindset, felt his principles had been trampled and his trust violated. Ethan, scarred by his own history with Olivia and the family's recurring cycle of conflict, watched with a mixture of disappointment and frustration, seeing old patterns repeat before his eyes. Mariah remained on the sidelines, her emotional distance underscoring the divide, while Lydia was left grappling with the reality that her wedding, a day she had envisioned as a unifying moment, had instead highlighted the fractures running through her family. Outside the walls of the wedding venue, the reaction was immediate. Fans of Welcome to Plathville took to social media, dissecting every moment of the fight. Twitter and Instagram lit up with posts, screenshots, and heated debates. Many aligned themselves with Micah, praising him for standing by Veronica and defending love despite the family pressure. Others sided with Isaac, arguing that loyalty to family should have come first and that Micah had crossed a line. The comments were relentless and hashtags flooded the internet, turning a private family struggle into a public spectacle. This public scrutiny amplified the weight of the moment. The Plaths, who had once kept their struggles largely within the household, now found every flaw, every resentment, and every unspoken grievance on display for millions to witness. Their once private family fractures had been laid bare, forcing them and viewers to confront the human cost of unresolved tensions. The fallout wasn't just immediate, it was ongoing. Alliances subtly shifted, old resentments resurfaced, and the trust between siblings seemed harder to rebuild. For Micah and Veronica, the challenge was clear. Every moment together now carried the pressure of family scrutiny. Or Isaac, the fight reinforced his commitment to family loyalty, but it also left him emotionally distant, wary of compromise. Lydia's hope for unity had been replaced by the sobering reality that some wounds might never fully heal. Fans continued to discuss the implications, analyzing the dynamics between Micah and Isaac, debating whether reconciliation was possible, and weighing Veronica's role in the family. Every angle was examined: the parents' influence, sibling rivalries, past conflicts with outsiders like Olivia, and the generational patterns of control and mistrust that had shaped the Plaths over years. The wedding fight became a lens through which viewers could explore the complicated intersection of love, loyalty, and independence. By the end of the day, one thing was undeniable. The Plath family had changed. What was once a tight-knit unit had become a battleground of competing priorities, divided loyalties, and unhealed wounds. The wedding was no longer remembered for vows or celebrations. It was remembered for the fight that exposed everything hidden beneath the surface. The scars, both visible and invisible, would linger long after the cameras stopped rolling. Even after the dust settled, the echoes of Lydia's wedding fight lingered. It wasn't just the bruises on Micah's face that remained. It was the gaping emotional chasm between him and Isaac, the tension that hung in the air, and the silent questions no one knew how to answer. Could these brothers ever find their way back to each other? Years of pent-up resentment and repeated clashes had created wounds that didn't heal overnight. And now, with the fight broadcast for the world to see, repairing their bond felt even more complicated. Micah found himself trapped between two worlds: loyalty to his family and loyalty to his heart. His choice to defend Veronica, someone his family still viewed with suspicion, had placed him in a nearly impossible position. Every interaction afterward carried weight. Every glance, every comment, every small disagreement risked reigniting old flames of conflict. And for Veronica, surviving in this environment wasn't just about patience or compromise. It was about navigating a household that had repeatedly struggled to accept strong outsiders. Her courage in speaking up made her a lightning rod, but it also made the path forward tense and uncertain. For Lydia, the wedding that should have marked love and unity now symbolized the limits of what her family could endure. The day had started with hope, smiles, and anticipation, yet ended with betrayal, hurt, and fractured relationships. For her, the challenge was personal. How could she embrace happiness while her closest family members remained at odds? The wedding, meant to be a turning point, had instead crystallized the fractures that had been simmering for years. Viewers watching the fallout couldn't help but feel the weight of these questions themselves. Social media buzzed with speculation. Could Micah and Isaac ever forgive each other? Would Veronica's role in the family remain as contentious as it had from the start? Was this wedding the moment that officially marked the Plaths as a permanently divided family? Fans debated endlessly, connecting dots from past seasons. Ethan's strained trust, Mariah's emotional distance, Kim and Barry's fractured parenting, and the recurring cycle of outsiders being treated with suspicion. Every piece of history added tension to the unresolved present. And that's the most haunting part. There were no easy answers. Reality TV can capture moments of drama, but it can't repair relationships. The wedding fight became more than an incident. It became a symbol of everything the Plaths had struggled with: love and loyalty in constant conflict, independence, challenged by family expectations, and the heavy cost of unspoken grievances left to fester for years.